Hello, and thank you for joining me for the second episode of Hot Off the Anvil, brought to you by the Three Virtues podcast. I'm your host, HeirOfTheChronicler. Today, I'm going to be answering your questions about how to fix cracked ball joint sockets, showing you how I fixed a mistake I made on a custom mask, discussing an interesting tidbit from TTV's interview with BIONICLE writer Greg Farshty, and much more. But before we begin, I want to give a shout out to Black 6 and the BZPower staff, whose front page injoke, which I still don't get, sparked the most active talkback thread in months. I see what you did there. Well played. I also want to give a shout out to TTV member LJ, who became the first person to ask me to build a scale Kini Nui. He will be receiving exactly one homemade cookie by mail. Also, I would like to tell my viewers that you can find links to everything I'm talking about in the description below. Now, I want to kick off our first segment, Into the Unknown. This is where I talk about life, the universe, and everything. Takis LST commented, "So, is there a way to repair Bionicle pieces without ruining them instead?" Of course, he is referring to the infamously weak ball joint sockets of Bionicle's later years. As we all know, much to our dismay, they have an unfortunate habit of cracking open, rendering them loose and practically unusable. Conventional wisdom will tell you to glue the cracks shut. However, these sockets work by expanding around the ball joint. This means that even though it looks fixed, it's literally designed to break apart again. So, what will you do? You may shed a tear, perhaps cry, "Oh, the humanity." Maybe you'll buy another one from Bricklink only to have it follow in its predecessor's inevitable footsteps. Or today, you can turn and fight. You can laugh in the face of each and every ball joint socket that has ever kicked the bucket, given up the ghost, struck you off its Christmas list, or sang with the fat lady. What I do is take an ordinary Q-tip and dot a few drops of super glue onto it. Then, I take that and rub it into the socket itself. Allow the glue to dry, or else become accustomed to your Solec's new pose forever. This coating of glue creates an extra layer of friction, tightening the socket and ignoring the crack entirely. Continue applying layers until it's a tight fit. A word of warning, do not get the glue on your fingers, because it will instantly glue them together. Ask me how I know this. Furthermore, before you ask, there are many different manufacturers of superglue. I use a generic brand found in most hobby shops. It comes in a bottle that looks like this. On the side, you'll see a URL that reads bsiink.com. That's how you'll know it's the same stuff that I use. Also, make sure you do not buy anything labeled thin. If you do, it will run everywhere, glue anything, and ruin everything. Do not get a large bottle. You will never, under any circumstances, use all of it, and it will become a $7.99 bottle of wasted potential and unrealized dreams. Moving on, Spiders Prime asks, what's with all the Mandarin jokes?
Lesson number 1. Heroes. There is no such thing.
Also, the Mandarin wears aviators, not John Lennon glasses. Next, Nick emailed asking, what tools do you use for sculpting? Well, to begin, I have a sculpting tutorial on my website to get you started with basic sculpting. Now, speaking for myself, I have only a few sculpting tools, and this is the one I use the most. It's stainless steel and has different tips at each end. The pointed end is good for carving into a surface, as well as flattening it. The rounded tip is good for shaping both concave and convex surfaces. I can do pretty much everything with this alone. The next tool I use is very similar to a paintbrush, except with a rubber tip. This allows me to gently shape detailed surfaces. I also often use an ordinary X-Acto knife with a variety of blades. Finally, I use what's called an awl, which is basically a screwdriver with a sharp pointed tip. There are many other tools, but these are my favorites. The best advice I can give to a beginner is get a cheap set, see what works best for you, and then buy better versions of your favorite tools. Personally, I prefer stainless steel because it's very easy to scrape dry putty off of. Now, our next segment is Blast from the Past. This is where I talk about something from Bionicle's history. And today, I'm going to show you the very first customs I ever made. Back in 2002, I saw the Gold Masks LEGO released, and they weren't really gold. They're more of a dirty bronze, really. So, perfectionist that I am, I decided I'm I'm gonna paint my own gold masks. I told my dad and my brother what I wanted to do, and they told me how to do it. I used much the same process that I do today. I sanded them, primed them, painted them, clear-coated them. The result has been my pride and joy for over a decade. I always liked the unified look their gold masks gave them, and I was really unhappy when they lost them in the Nuva transformation. I was also unhappy about how Kopaka's telescopic eyes aren't blue, Also, I was poor, so I pretended the gold masks allowed them to use any mask power without the mask actually changing shape. Convenient, huh? Now, some have held up better than others. Lua's Miru got bent, which cracked off a lot of the clear coat. The edges are worn through from handling, and they all have chips and scratches. Still, for a first try 12 years ago, I can't complain. In fact, I'm very proud of Galli's Cow. I never liked how you can't see her eyes through the official version, so I carefully cut a visor out of masking tape to keep from painting over her visor. I really wanted Kopaka's clear Cow for this, but beggars can't be choosers, just poverty-stricken perfectionists like me. In this next segment, Back to the Future, I talk about something down the road, like a deer caught in your headlights. In this episode, I want to talk about customizing Hero Factory. When BIONICLE ended, I thought to myself, well, crap, what will I customize now? With the release of Hero Factory, I figured, awesome, I'll make weapons and gear for these guys instead. To this day, not a single person has commissioned me to customize a Hero Factory piece. I'm hoping somebody watching this will change that, because I want to work on Hero Factory. The standardized skeleton is a brilliant building platform, yet LEGO has squandered its potential on recycling boring shell armor. I mean, I thought it was lame when LEGO released the Borak Cal as recolored Borak. Now LEGO's been reselling the same basic Hero Factory sets for what, 3 years? Lame. Let's take this ordinary ball joint socket. With this, and Hero Factory's standardized skeleton, I can make practically anything and make it removable like standard Hero Factory armor. Heroes dressed in Spartan armor from the Halo franchise? Got it. How about one of Tony Stark's Iron Man suits? Ideal for it. Maybe movie-style Toa Nuva? Done deal. And what does LEGO give us? Whatever this is. Crying itself to sleep at night, wishing it could be something it knows it never will be, like a quality construction set that somebody actually wants to buy. Now, for what you all came here to see, our title segment, Hot Off the Anvil. Here, I give you a first look at what's been on my workbench. And today, I want to begin with what happens when I screw up. A BZPower member commissioned me to build a 2006 prototype image, Kongu Inika Kanoe Suletu. Go ahead, say that 3 times fast. I attempted this mask once before, but lacking the proper parts, I came up short. Now, armed with a Nakama Metru Hydra blade, I attempted it once again. I trimmed down the Hydra blade and drilled the holes in it, as per the source material. Then, I cut away the entire backside of the Hydra blade and filed the Kraken's forehead flat. I glued them together, sent my client the pictures, and patted myself on the back. Jinxed. You see, the Hydra blade isn't attached to the forehead. It is the forehead. On the prototype, the entire upper mask has been cut away, and the Hydra blade has been inserted into the Kraken. I've looked at this picture for half a decade, and never realized what I was actually seeing. Furthermore, the Hydra blade's pistons are still there, just bent back to connect with the Kraken. I had already cut them off. This was a disaster. I messaged my client, told him what happened, and asked him if he wanted me to fix it. Thankfully, he said yes, and I went back to work. It's my policy to replace any part I've damaged, and the Hydra blade is no different. Luckily, I had a spare. I tore off the Hydra blade I'd already customized, trimmed down the new one, and again drilled the holes into it. Using an X-Acto knife, I carefully cut away the Kraken's forehead and trimmed the front eye holes back to meet with the rear eye holes. I fit the Hydra blade in and built up several layers of glue to hold it in place. I'd hoped to have it finished for this episode, but I'm still waiting on a Mari breathing tube I ordered. So you'll see it complete next time in Hot Off the Anvil number 3. Next, we have a helmet. Not just any helmet, but Dr. Fate's helmet from the DC Comics universe. It's sculpted entirely from green stuff putty and made to fit a Toa Metru's head. I began by modifying a plus rod and a Technic connector to mount the mask on. Then, I sculpted a wedge onto it so as to anchor the rest of the mask on that. Afterward, I made templates. Lots of templates. Once I had the shape down, I flattened 2 blobs of green stuff and allowed them to almost harden. The reason for allowing them to almost harden is because green stuff becomes easier to sculpt with precision the harder it gets. Then, I used the template to cut each side of the helmet out of the flattened green stuff. I attached them to the mouth wedge and attached several plasticard braces over the top of the head. You can see I'm also using rubber bands to ensure the mask keeps its shape while I'm working on it. From there, I sculpted the helmet's dome out of 2 pieces of green stuff and completed the basic shape. Afterward, many layers of what's called Squadron green putty was used to build up the final smooth finish. As with the prototype Suletu, I had hoped to have this finished for this episode, but I took a breather to bring you this next custom. Now, this is something I've wanted to do since the Glatorian were first released. Now, except for the Inika, move along, LEGO has always used the transparent eye technique to make it appear as though their eyes are glowing. I'm not sure who decided, hey, since the eyes and the head are a single piece, let's make the whole face glow. Regardless, it was a bad decision, and I'm here to rectify it. This Glatorian head is meant for a car, and so it was painted per his appearance in The Legend Reborn. He got the usual treatment, sand, primer, paint, and, well, the clear coat had to wait. I went back and painted his eyes blue, as they are in The Legend Reborn. I always liked the Iron Man mouth thing they did, and I wanted to draw attention to it. I inked it in and brushed a thin line of orange onto his lips to sharpen the contrast. Once those were done, I clear coated his head and finally brushed a layer of clear gloss over his eyes. I've waited years to make this happen, and now that I've seen it in person, I'm gonna have to go rip the heads off all my Glatorian and Gory sets and do it 20 more times. Winding down, it's time for the Massive Spotlight, where I show you a few of the interesting things happening in today's Bionicle community. I want to begin with the little Brotherhood Studios Project H.O.T.A animations. When I first saw them, 2 things jumped out at me. First, their extensive use of custom parts as well as custom-built backdrops, and secondly, the unspeakably awesome quality of the animation itself, only to have it drop again when I realized the Brotherhood Workshop was behind the Desolation of Smog trailer that I referenced in my last video without even realizing it. In a nutshell, their work is brilliant. Not only is the stop motion smooth and professional, the scene choreography is top-notch as well. The lengthy fight between the Matoran and the freaky nightmare snake things is more fierce, dramatic, and downright frightening than the fight scenes I've seen in many Hollywood blockbusters. Ultraviolet, I'm looking at you. Even the special effects are as good as anything else I've seen by other amateur producers on YouTube. In fact, there are many little details I only caught after watching it a second time, such as a character I assumed to be Toa Anua getting a scratch across his mask as battle damage during the fight sequence. And considering that the backdrops are made with cardboard and spray paint, they're absolutely beautiful, and help create an immersive setting for the animation. Combined with the grungy custom paint jobs on the characters, Little Brotherhood Studio has created a wonderfully unique little Bionicle world. What really takes the cake about all this is that this animation is 2 years old, and considered by the animators, and I quote, not quite good enough, and they're refilming the entire thing. If this is what poor quality looks like to them, I'm not sure the fabric of reality can withstand what they would consider high quality. Regardless, I subscribed, and you should too, right now. I'm serious. Pause this and go subscribe. Here, I'll give you a minute. Now, I had meant to review TTV's interview with Bionicle writer Greg Farshtey, but by now, I'm sure you're getting sick of listening to me. It's okay, I would too. Which brings us to our final segment, The Way It Is. This is where I voice my opinion, and you close out of the video because you don't care. Today, I want to talk about Hero Factory 2014, Invasion from Below. The one comment, commented more than any other comment, is, they ripped off Pacific Rim. Considering how far LEGO plans ahead, I highly doubt this. The best case scenario is that they were aware Pacific Rim and the upcoming Godzilla movies were in the works, and wagered that a theme featuring giant monsters would be popular with kids right about now. Regardless, I'm excited about it. More excited than I've ever been about a Hero Factory release, which I realize isn't saying much. What I'm excited about is the imagination and play factor this line will provide for kids. Suddenly, living room couches will become skyscrapers and coffee tables will become expressways. And many LEGO system buildings will be smashed apart by rampaging robot monster brawls. To the 8-year-old in me, that sounds like a really good time. And I'm interested to see what some of the talented builders in the community will do with mecha and monster creations. And you know, the prototype images of the Hero Factory minifigures fighting monsters without their mechs really reminded me of the upcoming game Titanfall. I could easily see heroes leaping in and out of their mechs as the monsters tear them to pieces. And you know, this is the second theme in a row to feature conflict in and around the Hero Factory's assembly tower in its own city. What will the citizens of Makahiro think of their Hero Factory when their way of life is shattered beneath the tread of monsters and monstrous war machines? On that note, I'm going to wrap up this episode of Hot Off the Anvil. Thank you for watching, and please tune in next time. You'll see the finished prototype Suletu and Dr. Fate helmet, as well as the Chronicler's company in their true colors, and many more painted Glatorian heads. As always, ask me anything and I'll try to answer it in Into the Unknown. And if you have anything cool you'd like me to show in Mask Spotlight, send it along. And finally, please forward all your hate mail to my secretary, TTV member LJ. And while you're there, subscribe to the Three Virtues podcast for news, reviews, and other assorted shenanigans. Until next time, I'm HeirOfTheChronicler, and this was Hot Off the Anvil. Aviators.